Christina Onnested. Senate Republican Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is endorsing the framework for gun safety legislation that a bipartisan group of senators are hashing out. The announcement Tuesday comes as public pressure to do something has been growing in the wake of deadly mass shootings. Eileen Alfandary reports.
For myself, I'm comfortable with the framework, and if the legislation ends up reflecting what the framework indicates, I'll be supportive.
Republican Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell's backing was the latest indication that last month's gun massacres in Buffalo, New York, and Uvalde, Texas, had reconfigured the political calculations for some in the GOP after years of steadfastly opposing even small steps. The bipartisan plan would for the first time make the juvenile records of gun buyers under the age of 21 part of required background checks and would extend the allowable period for checks for those under 21 from 3 to 10 days. The measure would also close the so-called boyfriend loophole. Those accused of domestic violence of a partner would face the same restrictions as those who abused a spouse. Money would be sent to states to enforce local red flag laws that let authorities win court order to temporarily remove guns from people considered dangerous to themselves or others, and for mental health and school security programs. Senators are trying to wrap up negotiations so the bill can come to a vote before the July 4th congressional recess. I'm Eileen Alfandary for Pacifica Radio.
A government advisory panel has endorsed a second brand of COVID-19 vaccines for school-aged children and teens. The Food and Drug Administration's outside experts voted unanimously that Moderna's vaccine is safe and effective enough to give kids ages 6 to 17. If the FDA agrees, it would become the second option for children in that age group, joining Pfizer's vaccine. Meanwhile, the advisory panel is expected to decide the fate of Moderna and Pfizer's vaccines for the nation's youngest children up to ages 5. U.S. producer prices surged 10.8% in May from a year earlier, underscoring the ongoing threat to the economy from a surge of inflation that shows no sign of slowing. The figure indicates rising prices will continue to erode Americans' paychecks and play havoc with household budgets in the coming months. The Federal Reserve is expected to announce its largest interest rate hike since 1994 today, and larger than it had previously signaled, a sign the central bank is expected to raise its benchmark short-term interest rate by 0.75 of a percentage point, far larger than the typical quarter-point increase. President Joe Biden is urging U.S. oil refiners to produce more gasoline and diesel. In a letter to refiners today, Biden says their profits have tripled during a time of war between Russia and Ukraine as Americans struggle with record high prices. Biden writes the oil companies need to work with his administration on near-term solutions to address the crisis. Biden's message that corporate greed contributes to higher prices might resonate with voters. Speaking at an AFL-CIO convention in Philadelphia Tuesday, Biden also blamed Russia's war in Ukraine for high gas prices and Republicans for the financial crunch Americans are experiencing.
The problem is, Republicans in Congress are doing everything they can to stop my plans to bring down costs on ordinary families. That's why my plan is not finished and why the results aren't finished either.
Republicans and conservative Democrats in the Senate have stalled progress on Biden's Build Back Better social spending plan. The United Nations Children's Agency, UNICEF, is warning the adverse impacts the war in Ukraine is having on children. Regional Director for Europe and Central Asia, Afshan Khan, visited the war-torn nation last week and Tuesday called for an end to the war.
The use of explosive weapons in populated areas and attacks on civilian infrastructure clearly must stop. It's killing and maiming children and preventing them from returning to any sense of normal life in their towns, in their cities, and in their homes. And I've seen a number of children, even young children, severely traumatized by what they've witnessed.
She said nearly 2/3 of Ukraine's children are displaced, adding the numbers are staggering and they bear repeating. She said they've supplied more than 2 million people with access to safe drinking water due to Russia's siege on Ukraine's infrastructure. The United Nations also says thousands of Ukrainian civilians, including women, children, and elderly, are trapped in an embattled city of Severodonetsk in the Donbass region with a diminishing supply of food, clean water, sanitation, and electricity. Elections took place in 5 states. Tuesday returns show Donald Trump has notched a significant victory in South Carolina, where his preferred candidate ousted 5-term House Republican Tom Rice. He's the first Republican who voted to impeach Trump to lose re-election this year. Another high-profile GOP target of Trump, Representative Nancy Mace, has held back a challenger in the primary. And the House committee investigating the deadly Capitol insurrection has postponed a hearing that was to feature Trump-era Justice Department officials. The hearing had been set for today. Democrat Zoe Lofgren, a member of the committee, described the postponement as no big deal during an appearance on MSNBC and said the delay was the result of technical work with video exhibits that still needed to be done. The next hearing is set to take place Thursday, beginning at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Pacifica station KPFA will broadcast the hearing live, hosted by Mitch Jeserich. I'm Christina Onnested, reporting for Pacifica Radio.